Incredible icebergs. Incredible icebergs. Focus question. How do icebergs affect people? How do they affect the environment? Introduction. For centuries, icebergs have frightened sailors in cold seas, and for good reason. When the ship Titanic made its first voyage in 1920, at 12, the ship hit an iceberg off the northeastern coast of Canada. The ship sank less than 3 hours later, taking about 1,500 people with it beneath the icy water. Icebergs rise from the ocean like mysterious white whales or snowy mountains. They are amazing to see, and yet what we see is just a small part that floats above the water's surface. That tip only hints at the massive amount of ice beneath the surface, hidden from view. All about icebergs. Icebergs come from the ends of the earth. Antarctica is the south and the Arctic into the north. Ice sheets and glaciers therefore form there when snow falls, then compacts over thousands of years. They move slowly downhill and break off or calve when they reach the sea. This separation from land creates an iceberg. By definition, an iceberg is floating ice that rises at least 5 meters, 16 feet above the sea's surface. Why does it flow like that? When water freezes, it develops crystals that spread the same amount of water over a larger area. For this reason, ice is about 10% less dense than water. It's why about 10% of an iceberg floats above the surface. Many Antarctic icebergs are bored and float flat like a tabletop because they break off from flat sheets of ice. Many are also huge. The largest known iceberg, B15, was 295 kilometers, 183 miles long, and 35 kilometers, 23 miles wide. It was large enough for everyone in the world to stand on. Icebergs in the Arctic are smaller and often pointed. They travel down valleys to the sea. Most icebergs are white because they contain air bubbles. Because the air inside is so compacted, those bubbles may hold 20 times more pressure than a car tire. When an iceberg melts, it makes a fizzing sound like soda as 10,000-year-old air slowly escapes. Blue icebergs are made of old ice that has pressure out the air bubbles, or of ice that has melted and frozen again. Green icebergs, which are rare, contain organic matter, matter with once living animals or plants, frozen into the ice. Watch out! Because icebergs are so compacted, the ice found in them is much harder than ice from your freezer. It's hard enough to sink a ship if a ship hits one. The Titanic was not the first ship sunk by an iceberg. Between 1882 and 1890, 14 ships were lost and 40 were damaged by icebergs. The loss of the Titanic, however, supports the United States and a handful of other nations to form the International Ice Patrol in IIP in 1912. In the North Atlantic, ice season runs from late winter through late summer. This is the period when icebergs break off from Greenland glaciers. Their journey takes several months and moves through the busy shipping area called the Grand Banks. It is the only location in the world where icebergs endanger in major shipping route. The IIP monitors the Grand Banks. It uses airplanes, reports sent from ships, and satellite images to create maps showing where icebergs have been seen. It spots about 600 icebergs a year. Some years have many more. A record 2,000 icebergs were spotted in 1984. Other years, like 1966, have none. No one knows why the number of icebergs changes. Since the IIP began, no ship that heeded its warnings have hit an iceberg. However, some captains take their chances. Trying to take a shortcut through the icebergs have sunk several ships. The episode of icebergs. Icebergs could have some handy uses. Glaciers and ice sheet contain almost 70% of the world's fresh water, and it's very pure water. These types of ice formed thousands of years before air and water pollution. Someday, icebergs might supply water to places that need it, like the Middle East or Southern California. The problem is how to move icebergs to where water is needed. Icebergs can be towed. People working on oil platforms, or for instance, lasso icebergs and tow them away from the platforms. If moved into warm water, though, icebergs melt. People are trying to find a way to insulate icebergs to keep them frozen. Another idea is to fuel tankers, ships designed to carry large amounts of liquid, which iceberg chips, then ship the melted chips across the ocean. However, like towing icebergs, this method is still too expensive to be practical. Math Minute. A good-sized iceberg contains about 76 billion liters, 20 billion gallons of fresh water. If 1 million people each used the 38 liters, 10 gallons of water a day, how long would the water from one iceberg last? Some companies use pure iceberg water to make things. Skincare products, for instance. First, though, someone must harness the icebergs. Canada now has iceberg cowboys who round up icebergs. These icebergs aren't going to hot places, so cowboys don't have to worry about them melting. However, iceberg harvesting can be dangerous work. An iceberg can roll over and crush a ship. Scientists afloat. Along with companies and cowboys, some scientists take an interest in icebergs. Some study to understand how melting icebergs may affect ocean currents, or be affected by them. A big iceberg can spend 10 years drifting through the ocean, pulled by tides and deep ocean currents. It may break in pieces as it collides with other icebergs or ice shelves. Finally, most will drift into warmer water and melt. Animals afloat. Arctic seals rely on icebergs as refuge from predators and as a spot to give birth. Polar bears hunt Arctic seals, so they spend time on icebergs too. In fact, as many as 20 polar bears were observed living on an iceberg off the Canadian Arctic coast. Today, the ice in the Arctic and Antarctic is shrinking because the Earth is getting warmer. More icebergs are calving. In order to better understand this melting process, one team of scientists landed an iceberg to study it. In February 2017, another team of scientists flying over Antarctica photographed a rift or a crack in an ice shelf. An ice shelf is a large sheet of ice that is attached to land but sits in the water. That July, the cracked shelf broke off from the continents. It formed A68, an iceberg almost the size of the U.S. state of Delaware. Do you know? On average, icebergs travel slower than most people walk. In the short term, calving of icebergs like A68 adds little to raising sea levels. That's because the most of the ice is already beneath the water when the iceberg breaks off. However, ice sheet calving speeds the movement of glaciers of the land, and glacier ice moving into the sea makes sea levels rise much more. This, in turn, floods coasts around the world. It's one reason scientists study icebergs, to help predict future sea level rise and help humans plan for it. Conclusion. Icebergs have troubled us since people first set sail through chilly waters, but our relationship with them has changed. Today, more people worry about what melting icebergs mean for coastal cities than for sailors at sea. We may come to rely on these giants of nature for fresh drinking water, or some other use we haven't even dreamed of yet. As research continues, we may find that what we knew about them today is really just the tip of the iceberg.